Lawyers of Reddit, what was your "oh I'm definitely winning this one" moment? I had a client who had a pretty severe slip and fall in a pharmacy. In my state, we are not allowed to see surveillance of the subject until after the deposition or other similar testimony is taken. The rule is in place to protect defendants so we don't coach the client based on what we see in the video. Anyway, we take the deposition. Then they send the video. Not 30 minutes later I get a call from opposing counsel wanting to settle. The video revealed that my client had fallen, passed out and peed herself. She was very elderly and very hurt. The manager of the store had an employee put signs out showing wet floor and mop up around the lady, all while she was unconscious. All before calling 911. Settled that one for the policy limits right there. I was defending a company being sued for kicking a customer out for being drunk. He showed up to trial, small claims, wasted at 10 AM. The judges in small claims are lenient on process. They like to adjudicate on the merits. So we started. He's the plaintiff so he goes first. Can barely stand during his opening statement. Knocks over his shopping bag full of evidence. Just awful. The court put a stop to it and ruled in my client's favor. The only words I spoke were putting my name on the record. God. This is going to read like it belongs in our Thathapant. My dad saw the video, which was famous at his firm. Workers' comp claim for a back injury that seems suspicious, so they sick a pie on the guy after a while, which is fairly common. Pie comes back with a video of the guy batting softball batting practice, talking his back over and over. Exactly what he says he can't do. Okay. Whatever. People get caught all the time. The camera pans and who is shagging gonads in the outfield? Opposing ducking counsel. So, yeah. Case dropped and the judge took it up with the bar. Not a lawyer. I represented myself in a restraining order hearing. And I was terrified. I was the petitioner and I was in the same room as my abuser for the first time since I'd obtained the emergency order. I felt a lot better as soon as my abuser's lawyer butchered my name. And even better when the judge kept telling him off. Best moment, though, was when he declined to cross-examine my third witness because my other two had destroyed the points he was trying to make. I'm a lawyer. And it's been my experience that judges tend to give pro se folks, that is, people representing themselves in court, more leeway in court than they would to a trained attorney. And because most judges are human beings, I have to imagine that the judge wasn't in a hurry to give your abuser the benefit of the doubt. Congratulations on the, I assume, win. And I hope you're doing better now. When the judge keeps on questioning the other side repeatedly, without me needing to say or submit anything. Definitely have a lot of those moments. Especially when you have a tight case. Or when the other side's arguments are too flimsy. Through a weird quirk of a shared representation agreement, myself and another lawyer from my firm were both representing parties in the same property litigation case. We get to court, enter our names on the record, and my co-worker starts his spiel for the hearing. The defendant, who was seated behind, shouting and interrupting almost immediately, without even standing up. His lawyer can't shut him up and so the judge turns his ire on the defendant. My co-worker just sits down. We put our heads down. And the judge proceeds to try our entire case for us by just ripping into this disrespectful defendant. Truck driver changed his story on the stand about how the accident happened from what he had always said previously. Next on the stand, a police officer who had responded to the scene gives this new version too. I ask him on cross when he heard this new version. And he said, in the hallway just before I came in. Oh, I'm definitely winning this one. I was representing a rental company for homes. Had to present a case where I had to prove the tenants had been using the house they had rented for an illegal weed farm. They claimed they did have weed in the house, but only for their own recreational use. Apparently there's such a thing as a weed expert and I asked him to testify about how much weed is considered normal for a joint. How many joints per day a regular user would smoke. etc. Little weed facts. so to speak. With his written testimony I did the math, which I presented during my in-statement. With all the weed they had lying around, even if the couple smoked 18 heavy joints a day per person, they had enough for 10 years. That ain't recreational, folks. I knew I had them when I heard the bailiff snort when I presented the numbers. Keeping this as vague as possible to not dox myself, but my security camera caught the plaintiff putting a human poop in my mailbox. I can say that having good cameras, including a Ring doorbell, is a godsend. You can have full assurance that, should anything happen on your property, you damn well have evidence to document it. When the other lawyer got a call on his cell phone while he was making his closing argument to the judge, he told the judge just a second and took the call. Not my case, but during my aunt's divorce custody case. Wasn't really one hearing per se, but over multiple hearings. My aunt wanted full custody of the kids. She initially had custody, but uncle was allowed to see the kids every other weekend under supervision. Uncle was abusive, nasty even to the kids, even under supervision. Social services reported his behavior, and at hearings he was rude and arrogant to the judge. Wouldn't listen and even walked out on a few occasions. Even his barrister thought he was a piece of shit. He made it obvious he didn't give a shit about the kids, and he and his mother declared on a few occasions that the kids were a result of incest between their mother and her father. Yeah, he dug his own grave with that one. Judge ruled that normally father will get some custody at least, but he was making an exception and banning him from coming near the kids until they're 18. And got full custody. Opposing party, mum, stands up while the justice is speaking, interrupts, and says I can't force my children to do something they don't want to do. For context, the justice was talking about how dad, my client, needed to have some parenting time. Mum had alienated the kids and was claiming that they didn't want to see him. Opposing counsel, who had most definitely not anticipated her client doing this, just lowers her head and closes her eyes. I stand up and say if mum can't control her children, then perhaps she should not be the primary parent. The justice replies, and I'll be available to hear it when you make that application, Mr. El Joffalor. That said, I knew I had one when mum stood up earlier and questioned the qualifications of the psychologist she had suggested. When said psychologist came back with a report that my client should have parenting time. Not a lawyer, but one time I had to get a restraining order against my ex-girlfriend. She was stalking me after I broke up with her. In retaliation, after I filed for the restraining order against her, she filed for one against me. Totally ridiculous, since all I wanted was for her to leave me alone. So we had a hearing in court to sort this out. And this conversation takes place. Judge, Mr. Lingonberry. It says in her statement that you attacked her with an axe. Did you attack this woman with an axe? Me. No. Your Honor. Judge, I see. Well, since you've both filed restraining orders against each other, why don't we forego the restraining orders and you two can just leave each other alone? My ex. Immediately, yes. Me. Your Honor. I would still like the restraining order. Please. I got the restraining order. She violated it so many times I might as well not have. But I got the restraining order. I was trying a civil case in New Hampshire in front of a salt of the earth jury. In the back row were 4 women. I called a witness who was an assistant town clerk. She came in without a subpoena voluntarily while on maternity leave. She left her baby at home. She was a lovely, well-spoken and articulate woman who oozed credibility and likability. Her evidence was useful to us but shouldn't have been fatal to the other side's case. After my direct exam, the other lawyer decides to tear into her with largely irrelevant questions in the harshest, most rude way possible. After one question which reeked of his artillery, the 4 ladies in the back row all were rolling their eyes and looking at each other as if to say, you believe this shit? It was right then and there I knew we were winning that one. When the judge called all counsel back into chambers during trial and told the opposing attorney, the jury hates you. Really? Really hates you? Not a lawyer. Just one of the folks gathering documents. The company got an unexpected demand letter claiming we provided a defective piece of equipment and wanting big bucks for the cost of repair and all the downtime it caused. Our in-house lawyer immediately thought something was up. Letters like that are never out of the blue. They are always preceded by phone calls and emails. And he always got looped in on those. So when he called me up to have the document preservation chat, he also wanted me to pull and print all emails ASAP. There weren't many. Maybe 30 mentioning the company. 20 to all from the company. And all of them, save 3, were from when they bought the machine over a year before. The last email was the only one I actually printed. And I decided to deliver it myself with one line highlighted. I had never seen our company lawyer smile. Nor laugh. But he was doing both as soon as he read it. Not a lawyer. My case hasn't even gone to court yet, suing old landlord. Landlord lied in the documents submitted to the judge for the pre-hearing and I have proof she is lying. Lawyer is very excited about it. Hit and run. My client was the one who got hit. Defendant's defense was, it may have been my car. But I had reported it stolen and it wasn't me behind the wheel of the car. During my client's examination in chief. Me, what were you doing at that time? Client, I was waiting for the pedestrian light to turn green so that I could cross the street on the zebra crossing. Me, and did you wait for the light to turn green before crossing? Client, yes. The light turned green. And I waited a few seconds before crossing the street. Right then and there. The defendant jumps up and roars across the courtroom, my light was green to go. That bloody ducking liar dashed across the street. A lot of my family are personal injury lawyers. Most of the time when people fake injuries they then post pictures on their social media disproving it. One that sticks out was someone claiming injury in a car crash, I think severe neck and or back pain, and then posted pictures skiing. Overall, if you say you can't do this, make sure no photographic proof of you doing them. They can and will subpoena social media places, so even having accounts set to private won't help. I own a restaurant bar and we had a young rookie police officer hovering next door 3-4 nights a week towards close and he was pulling everyone over for failure to make a complete stop. Obviously most of the people were guilty of a rolling stop. Most people got a warning. But he was trolling for DUIs. One night we saw him parked across the street and my friend was leaving, so I went out and stood there as witness that he came to a full and complete stop in case he got pulled over. The officer saw me standing there and my friend came to a complete stop. Like a really good complete stop. I walked away after my friend was out of sight. Next day my friend said that he had got pulled over after I walked away and had blown a .09 DUI. The point of this story is that when I was called as a witness at trial, the officer and my versions of the story were absolutely the opposite. When I was dismissed by the DA, I asked if I could make a statement. The DA objected, but the judge allowed it. So I said, so if I testify that, insert friend's name, came to a full and complete stop and the officer says it was a rolling stop, then one of us is committing perjury. And I'm confident that I am not committing perjury. The courtroom grew a little loud with chatter. We were dismissed. The officer resigned a short while after that. Turns out as a rookie, he had a ranking officer that was the bad egg riding shotgun and made him make the traffic stop regardless of probable cause. Poor guy getting a tainted reputation from a bad senior officer. I'm an appellate criminal defense attorney. Which means I take the case after the defendant has been convicted, sentenced. And I try to convince a court of appeals that he deserves to be released from prison, get a new trial, get a new sentence. I had one case a few weeks ago that was a total travesty of justice. Black client tried by an all-white jury, not even a single minority in the entire venire. Defended incompetently by a sheet trial attorney who did absolutely nothing for him. Who then got convicted on all counts and received an extremely high sentence for a relatively piddling fraud, higher than Manafort got. I raised 5 different issues on appeal. Which is a lot. Typically I keep it to 1 issue or maybe 2. At oral argument. The judges on the panel seemed pretty sympathetic during my presentation. though they asked me some tough questions. After I sat down, the government lawyer went up to speak. Before she got a word out, the first thing the judge said was, "This is like a law school exam. There are so many issues here." Had a pretty good feeling I'd win after that one. And indeed they ended up reversing all of his convictions and my client is now a free man. My brother had a case where someone accidentally told the truth after years of lying. Realized they screwed up and asked the court reporter to strike it from the record. That is not how it works. Obligatory, not a lawyer. My best friend had a custody hearing 2 weeks ago to try and gain full custody of his son. Ex didn't even show up because she couldn't even bother to get the date right. Needless to say, things went his way. The judge reminding opposing counsel that they were allowed to ask leading questions during cross-examination.